I thought I'd just make a short video to show how I've got my flight modes and other mixes set up on my DLG. I don't know much about these things really, but this is what I've gleaned from all the reading and video viewing I've done, and I thought you might be interested. If you're not, well, I switch off now because it gets really boring otherwise. So let's talk about primary controls. I've got ailerons. I've got 60% differential on these, and I've also got rates on them. So if that's high rate,
middle rates, low rates, middle rates, high rates.
Miss Taranis speaks for herself. And I've obviously got brakes. Which is very nice. Elevator down, high rate elevator up, high rate elevator down,
middle rates,
middle rate,
low rates,
low rate,
middle rates, high rates,
and obviously rudder,
middle rates, low rates.
fine. There you go. So let's talk about flight modes. That's cruise mode, which is what I generally fly around in. That's just fine, gives me lots of range.
Speed mode.
There's speed mode, which gives me a little reflex.
Cruise mode, thermal mode.
And that's thermal mode. I've also got thermal mode. I've got the camera on a slider, my left slider on my Taranis transmitter, and I can move it up and down like that. I normally fly around like that. If I really want to slow it down, I'll go there. And I haven't really had time to play with flying it around like that, but it really does stop dead. And I suspect that's going to be the optimum position, or somewhere between there and there. But it's nice to have it on the slider.
Cruise mode.
I've also, like all DLGs, you see really, I have a launch mode. When I pull the momentary switch, I've programmed it so that I get some
launch mode,
camber, which increases lift. I've also got some up elevator, which I'll show you in a second. I've actually got that camber, launch camber, on a slider as well, on my right slider. I've only just started flying this glider, so I haven't really tuned it yet. So I'm still working out what the best position for the camber for the rotation is. I think that's about optimum at the moment. Once I'm happy with that, I'll reprogram the slider for another variable. Once the launch button's released, it goes into zoom mode, which is actually the same as speed mode at the moment.
Zoom.
It also tells me what mode I'm going to be in when I do the pushover at the top, and that's set according to the mode switch. I do the pushover at the top.
Cruise mode, minus 9 feet.
It tells me the height of the launch and puts it into the mode setting I've started with. So if I do that again, I pull the launch entry switch,
launch mode,
I get some camber, I get some up elevator. When I let go of the switch,
cruise mode, zoom.
It tells me what mode I'm going to be in after I've done the push over the top, and goes into zoom mode, which is essentially my speed mode. When I put more than 10% down elevator in,
cruise mode,
like
minus 7 feet.
It drops into cruise mode, and I'll be in cruise mode at the top of the launch for most of the time if I want to move off. Otherwise,
thermal
I'll just
mode,
be in thermal mode.
Thermal mode, zoom.
Thermal mode at the top of the launch, do the pushover.
Thermal mode, minus 7
drops
feet.
into thermal mode.
Launch mode, thermal mode, zoom. Thermal mode, minus 7 feet.
When I do the pushover at the top, Miss Taranis also tells me my altitude at that point, so I can judge how high I've launched, which is always good to know, just to see if I'm improving or not. And I'm generally not improving. Very frustrating, but that's part of the fun of a DLG, I think, seeing how high you can launch it. So in launch mode, as I said, I get some up elevator, which you can't see there.
Thermal mode, zoom.
I have the elevator on my S1 knob, so I can dial up more.
Launch mode.
I don't know if you can see that moving or not. I can dial up more elevator or less elevator depending on how much wind and the current range I've got. I would say gives me a reasonable launch angle from no wind to about 10 knots. And any more than that, I can't dial it down anymore. I'd have to use a trim in the launch mode, but that's okay, I can do that. I've got on this mat at the moment, I've got the central gravity at 78 millimeters from the leading edge, which is a little far forward really when you do a dive test, but it flies so nicely at that setting I'm probably not going to move it back any further. If I did, I'd probably have to use more up elevation in the launch mode. I've also got snap flap. When I put in up elevator, it gives me some positive camber and vice versa. This increases lift or decreases lift, so makes the aeroplane a bit more manoeuvrable. I find it particularly useful when I'm thermaling tightly with a little bit of up elevator. The extra camber on the wing produces a bit more lift and actually makes the plane very pleasant to thermal tightly. I'll just show you that now.
Elevator mixed with flaps.
So if I pull some up elevator, you can see I've got some positive camber. So I'll go into cruise mode. It's more pronounced. You can see it more clearly against the reference of the wing trailing edge. So that's full up elevator. That's full down elevator on the pushover. So generally speaking, I'm thermaling with that much, tightly with that much elevator, and you can see how much flap it puts in. And I think that's great, and it's only something I've started doing recently, and it's very, very pleasant, and I recommend you do this, put the snap flap in. A lot of people out there who like to do flat turns for some reason. If there's an enormous wide thermal, that's great, but low down thermal bubbles are really small, and so you need to be turning tight to keep. So get the scenery moving, guys, get the plane banked over tightly into small thermals, and you'll stay with them and go up. If you wiggle around with flat turns, yawing around with your rudder, I think you will have trouble going up, but I'm no expert. I also, while I'd never do fast turnarounds, I have sometimes launched with the flap stick, brake stick right down, and that's not very good. It kind of stops dead and makes a horrible noise. So if I just pull my launch switch,
Launch mode, cruise mode, zoom.
It disables the brakes. They won't work again until the brake stick is pulled all the way up to the top. I like having coupled rudder and aileron when I'm in brake mode. I quite like it when I'm thermaling as well, and do use it, but it's particularly useful, I think, when the brakes are all the way down. And using the rudder allows you to steer without having to have any headroom on the brakes. So there's no more down available. So I've got my maximum throw, but using the rudder allows me to steer perfectly well and makes use of the dihedral on the wing, mixed in with flaps, try and keep stop the aeroplane zooming up as more lift comes on from the flaps. I've still got to fiddle with that. It's pretty good at the moment, but I need to muck around with the curve. I think I've got just a bit too much at the end of the curve. One thing I didn't mention was failsafe condition. I don't want this thing flying away if I lose my radio link. So if I just switch the transmitter off now, I've lost the link. I have full flap, I have full up elevator and full left rudder, so that should give me a nice slow spin. I haven't tried that in flight. I must do it next time I go out, but I'm hoping it's just going to come down relatively gently. I've had some quite high flights of this now, so I am worried that it's going to go away to France on its own. So I've also written my telephone number on the underside of the wing. They'll know who to sue when it goes through their greenhouse, I guess.